Hey, what's up guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be my 8.2 Demonology Warlock DPS guide. In it, we will be discussing talents, Azerite traits, essences, rotations, and different builds for both Mythic Plus and rating. If you're interested in any week auras or add-ons you see here, I'll place a link to my Twitch where I stream 5 to 6 days a week, as well as my Discord in the description where you can find them all. I will also place a link to recent sims in the description for essences and Azerite traits alike. Let's get right into it and start off with the new 8.2 essence system for Demonology. Out of all three Warlock specs, Demonology is easily my favorite to play in Mythic Plus, and some of the new essences it has access to now have really given the spec even more raw power. For rating, the major essences that you're mostly going to want to focus on acquiring are Condensed Life Force rank 3 and Vision of Perfection. Condensed Life Force is on a 3-minute CD, which means that it should sync with every other demonic tyrant that you cast. It increases your haste by 10% in addition to increasing the damage you deal to the target by 5% for a 30-second duration on use. It can also randomly proc the 5% additional damage for 6 seconds off the minor essence it brings with it. Vision of Perfection, on the other hand, brings much less consistency, but also the potential for a lot more raw power. VOP grants your spells and abilities a chance to summon a demonic tyrant for 35% of its baseline duration. Doing so grants you 3 shards instead of 5 from the normal Baleful Invocation Azerite trait, as well as 1/3 of the baseline intellect that Supreme Commander grants you if you're running said Azerite trait. Now we're going to get into Azerite traits a bit further into the guide, but out of these two essences, it's important to take away that Condensed Life Force rank 3 brings much more consistency, while VOP brings with it much more RNG, but also a much higher upside if you have the VOP Tyrant procs during your actual player-bound Tyrant setup, or just chain multiples back to back. As far as minor essences go for rating, you will most likely find people running Crucible of Flame with Condensed Life Force, and Memory of Lucid Dreams with the Vision of Perfection major build. Lucid Dreams as a minor brings even more RNG to the VOP base builds, but when the stars actually align, your damage is truly insane. Crucible of Flame is simply a very strong minor option as the damage it deals is very high and consistent, just like Condensed Life Force. Whirlwind Resonance is also not a terrible option if you have multiple people in your raid running the trait, and movement is not a huge factor on the fight. You do also see people periodically running a Memory of Lucid Dreams major build with VOP minor for a few different reasons, but it's typically due to fight mechanics or strategies. The Condensed Life Force / VOP builds overall are stronger as a whole in my opinion. As far as essences in Mythic Plus go, Essence of the Focusing Iris is a very popular choice as a major essence, as it brings with it a tremendous amount of burst damage on a relatively short CD. You do see people running with Condensed Life Force or VOP at times, and while I have experimented with Vision of Perfection personally, I feel that it brings with it a bit too much RNG in Mythic Plus. At times it was proccing at the very end of a trash pack, pretty much wasting the Tyrant, which is not really where we want to be. Condensed Life Force, while very powerful, is on a 3-minute CD, which is also not very attractive in a sense in a fast-paced Mythic Plus environment in my opinion. When it comes to minor essences, you pretty much see Memory of Lucid Dreams as the default choice that people gravitate towards, and with good reason. It's a very strong essence for Demonology in general, and when paired with certain talents or Azerite traits, it can make your shard generation truly insane. I have also seen a few builds running Vision of Perfection as a minor for the baseline CD reduction that it brings, and after thinking about it a bit more, I do think it probably holds some merit. The real question is though, is it a stronger choice than Lucid Dreams, and I think the answer is probably no. This is the current talent build that most are running for keys currently. In the first row we have the choice of either Bioscourge Bombers or Demonic Strength, and the winner here overall is Bioscourge Bombers. Yes, it does cost 2 soul shards, but it's also only on a 30-second CD versus Demonic Strength being 1 minute. Demonic Calling is really the only option we have in the 30 row. Power Siphon is not in a great place at the moment sadly, and Doom takes 25 seconds to deal any damage, which is effectively a dead trait in Mythic Plus outside of bosses. I prefer Burning Rush in the 45 row for added mobility, but will often swap the Dark Pact in higher keys for an additional cooldown. In the 60 row, our only real choice for Mythic Plus is Soul Strike, as it provides another spell we can cast on the move, while also generating a shard on a pretty low cooldown. It can also allow us to set up a Tyrant pretty quickly when time is limited. The 75 row is another utility-based row, and most of the time I choose Dark Fury for Mythic Plus, but would not fault you for taking Mortal Coil or even Circle at times. AoE stuns are always valuable, especially on Raging or Necrotic weeks, and Dark Fury plays very well by reducing Shadow Fury's cooldown with them. In the 90 row, we technically have two choices, one being Soul Conduit and the other being Grimoire Felguard. Soul Conduit offers a bit more smoothing over the course of the run as well as the potential for some pretty insane Hand of Gul'dan / Implosion chains or large tyrants in general. Grimoire Felguard is on a 2-minute CD, but offers a great bit of on-demand burst damage for large pulls, reaping waves, or boss openers. In the end, they're both very close to one another, and it mostly comes down to playstyle. I do prefer Felguard a bit more on fortified or teaming weeks, but have played both to great success. And finally, in the final row, our only real option at the moment is Demonic Consumption. Sadly, Sack Souls has fallen out of favor recently, and Nether Portal, while an awesome talent, is just too hard to set up in Mythic Plus with all of the movement present. That, coupled with the fact that it's on a 3-minute cooldown versus Consumption being 1.5 minutes, makes Demonic Consumption that much more valuable in Mythic Plus. As far as Azerite traits go in Mythic Plus, Explosive Potential is going to be what you want to prioritize at 2 or more stacks. Baleful Invocation is also strong even at 2 or more stacks, but it is tied to a 1.5 minute CD versus EP being effectively a permanent buff. The first stack of Baleful Invocation is extremely important to acquire, however, as the 5 shards it grants is exceptionally powerful. Demonic Meteor is also a strong choice for Mythic Plus due to its increased Hand of Gul'dan splash damage, and the 5% chance is also nice to have around, which can lead to some insane hand into tyrant sequencing. Outside of those few traits, other traits like Supreme Commander, Treacherous Covenant, Blightborn Infusion, Endless Hunger, and similar stat-based ones are strong as well. The current set that I'm running for Mythic Plus consists of triple Explosive Potential, 1 Baleful Invocation trait, and 2 Demonic Meteor traits. The Implosion Rotation is something that I get a lot of questions about both on stream as well as in Discord, so I felt that it would be a good idea to cover it here. You effectively want to implode with either 2 or 3 sets of imps, which depends on your actual procs. If you don't have any actual demonic core procs, you want to build the 5 shards, cast Hand of Gul'dan, then either Soul Strike or Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan once more, Shadow Bolt, and then implode. Casting the final Shadow Bolt allows time for your imps to spawn from the second hand, as they are not instant. If you have 2 or more demonic core procs, you would then build the 5 shards and cast Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, followed by 1 final Hand of Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt, and then Implosion. This is the 3-wave Hand of Gul'dan cycle that we mentioned. Obviously, imploding here will refresh your EP, but make sure not to enter an implosion cycle with very little time left on your current EP. This is the generic decon build that mostly everyone is running. Demonic Strength gets the nod over Bioswarge Bombers in the first row due to its similar single target damage output and the fact that it does not cost any soul shards. In the 30 row, Demonic Calling is still the choice that the vast majority are playing with for a few reasons, even though Doom is technically the highest DPS choice by a small margin. In the 45 row, Burning Rush is the de facto choice as the additional movement speed it provides is very strong on basically every raid encounter. Soul Strike is still the choice in the 60 row here over Vile Fiend due to how it functions with Demonic Consumption and for the utility it provides, especially on the move. Demonic Circle is basically the default choice on almost every raid encounter as well for a few reasons. It effectively allows you to achieve certain mechanics like the knockup on Mythic Mechatorque, while also providing an instant teleport, which saves you time on the move to name a few of them. In the 90 row, we once again have the Soul Conduit versus Grimoire Felguard conundrum, but most have gone with Soul Conduit at this point, as it can lead to some very large demonic tyrants if RNG is actually on your side. The additional refunds, even when Tyrant is on CD, are also nice, and it's not tied to a 2-minute CD like Felguard is. Finally, in the last row, Demonic Consumption is once again the only real choice or option we have here at this point as Demonology. As mentioned, the Soul Conduit build, especially with a Demonic Meteor Azerite piece, can lead to some extremely large tyrants, in addition to your tyrant being a 1.5 minute CD, which is something we don't see very often. Now, there are really 2 different builds for Demonology currently when it comes to raiding and Mythic Plus in a sense. You have the Explosive Potential builds, which you typically see in Mythic Plus and sometimes in raiding, and then Baleful Invocation based builds, which you see much more so in raiding. The EP based ones offer more consistent, smooth damage, which you typically see paired with Condensed Life Force as the major essence of choice. The Baleful Invocation builds you typically see pair with Vision and Perfection and aim for 3 Baleful Invocation traits, which make the build's damage much more cooldown based than its explosive potential counterpart. If you're running the Vision and Perfection based build, Supreme Commander gains a lot of value as a trait due to the fact that your VOP based tyrants do indeed grant you the Supreme Commander buff upon expiration at 1/3 of its normal intellect value. The same can be said for the first stack of Baleful Invocation, granting you 3 soul shards effectively for free whenever a VOP based tyrant procs. Having 1 demonic meteor piece mixed into your single target raid set, whether it's EP or VOP based, is also a great choice, as the 5% refund chance it brings is very powerful. Each spec has a different opener, but both are pretty easy to master. For the explosive potential opener, you want to start by precasting a Demon Bolt right into a Hand of Gul'dan. At this point, cast Soul Strike, Shadow Bolt, and then Implosion to get your EP buff active. You want to then cast Call Dreadstalkers, and then build the 5 shards via Shadow Bolt and cast Hand of Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt or Soul Strike, Hand of Gul'dan, and then Hand of Gul'dan again if there are any remaining Soul Shards, right into Summon Demonic Tyrant. This should put you back to 5 shards thanks to Baleful Invocation, in which you want to immediately cast Hand of Gul'dan, a filler spell, and then implode to refresh your explosive potential buff. Outside of that, it's mainly about casting Call Dreadstalkers when it's off CD, and casting 3 shard Hand of Gul'dans. One thing to note is when you're setting up for later Demonic Tyrants, you want to carry over 2 Demonic Core procs, which is instant cast Demon Bolt, into the setup. This is easy to do thanks to your Dreadstalkers granting you 2 procs upon expiration. The setup for that Tyrant would then be build the 5 shards, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Demon Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Hand of Gul'dan, and then summon Demonic Tyrant. The Baleful Invocation build typically opens a bit differently than the EP build, as mentioned. You want to start by precasting a Demon Bolt right into Call Dreadstalkers and then Hand of Gul'dan. At this point, you're basically waiting for your 2 Demonic Core procs from your Dreadstalkers to set up your Tyrant, so another 3 shard hand or so is fine. When you're close to Dreadstalkers expiring, you want to build the 5 shards, then cast Hand, Demon Bolt, Hand, Demon Bolt, Hand, Summon Demonic Tyrant. This sequencing guarantees you the most powerful Tyrant possible, and seeing as how a large portion of your damage is built into your Tyrant via Baleful Invocation traits, it's easy to see why this opener is actually a thing. Outside of that, it's mainly about casting Call Dreadstalkers when it's off CD, and casting 3 shard Hand of Gul'dans. You want to make sure that you follow the same setup for subsequent Tyrants as well. Now, while I still don't advocate stat weight sims as a whole, both versatility and critical strike gained a lot of ground on 8.2 due to damage-based trinkets, damage-based essence procs, and benthic gear with damage procs as a whole due to their damage being directly affected by versatility and critical strike. Most of my own personal single target sims have pushed me towards running a set consisting of crit and burst gems and chance, but you should run your own to be safe. As far as pets go, your Felguard should pretty much always be the pet you use. He deals more damage than any other pet you have as Demonology, but the downside is that he does not bring with him an actual interrupt. If your group really needs one for a specific fight or encounter, then swapping to the Fel Hunter is an option, but you will lose out on a bit of damage as well as the functionality of the Soul Strike talent if chosen. There are also 2 glyphs that you can purchase to both change the appearance of your Felguard to a Wrathguard, as well as allow him to wield or dual wield, if he's a Wrathguard, 2-handed weapons that are in your bags. They are called Glyph of Wrathguard and Glyph of Felguard. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this guide gave you all a better understanding of Demonology in 8.2 as a whole. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below and I'll be sure to get back to you. If you're interested in any weak auras or add-ons you've seen, I'll place a link to my Twitch where I stream 5 to 6 days a week, as well as my Discord in the description where you can find them all. If you guys want to see more WoW content and help support the channel, smash those like, share, and subscribe buttons as your support really helps. Thanks guys, and I'll see you all on stream. Peace.